Truth without love is not loving. So what do I mean by this? Well, this weekend I attended some more candidate forums for folks that are running for school district trustee. And of course, the hot topic issue of the day, transgenderism, kept coming up over and over. And most of the candidates, all but one, spoke out in favor of SOGI. SOGI is a program in the province of BC that's the sexual orientation and gender inclusion. Of course, the people who spoke in favor of it did so because they wanted to be seen as loving. They didn't want anybody to be bullied or discriminated against. I don't either. Of course, none of us want that. I personally experienced racism when I came to Canada in the 70s. It was prevalent. It was everywhere. There's racism today. And I'll tell you what, newsflash, you could go to any country in the world, people have racist tendencies. Our hearts are wicked. We are not, as the left coast, west coast people would tell you, deep down all good, caring people. Far from it. We are all broken, messed up people, and the sooner we recognize that, the sooner we can move on and look for something outside of ourselves to help change that. However, getting back to what we were talking about, the people that I encountered, that I listened to, while they were well-meaning in their intent, they were certainly misguided. Primarily, it was a few folks that were part of the Indigenous First Nations culture. There was a lady with African descent, and they conflated their own personal discrimination stories with the whole SOGI ideology. Now, I'll give the left full credit. They're brilliant at wrapping up a variety of different things into one issue. So when you question it, now if you question this whole ideology stuff, this gender ideology, well, you're a racist. You're against African people, you're against Indigenous people, you're against whatever, you name it. The goal of this is to create victims. And the people I heard speaking out in favor of it, people running for positions of authority, were all victims themselves at some point, and they could identify with that. And so when you're a victim, you need to find an oppressor, some deep, dark force that is ruining your life. And you know what? It's easy to point at the man, the establishment, religion, whatever it may be. However, what these people, these do-gooders, I would say, fail to realize is that the stark reality will hit these children that are confused one day. I was listening to the words of a doctor who does a lot of gender reassignment. She's in favor of this, as crazy as it sounds, but she actually admitted some truth. She said that the people who get these surgeries done will never, ever experience sexual climax like as if they were in that actual gender. They will never have the full satisfaction of intimacy. And that is why later on, after these surgeries are done, these blockers are done, a decade or so later, suicide, depression, everything just goes rampant and crazy because you can never be something you're not. And for adults to tell young, impressionable minds that that's the case, that isn't loving at all. It's very callous and cruel. I heard of a lady who was running for the position. She had been left the RCMP 30-year veteran. And she recited a story how just recently her 80-year-old son had come home from school and showed her a picture of his classmates, and mom pointed to this picture of this little girl and said, "Oh, there's a cute little girl." And the boy said, "No, mom, I can't remember the name. She identifies as Tim or Tom or whatever it was, they, he, whatever." Anyway, the gist of the story was, mom said, "Wow, I realized how my 80-year-old was just so much more enlightened with me than me on these issues." Folks, an 80-year-old. We don't let 80-year-olds vote, drink, gamble, do anything else, yet they are going to dictate to adults what the norms of society would be. That's an upside down world. That isn't what they're supposed to be. They don't have wisdom. They don't have life's experience. They haven't lived anything out. They have such a short breadth of time that they've seen. And if we let every decision be ruled by feelings and emotions, we are constantly going to be deceived because the heart above all else is deceitful. And that's the problem. We've got all of these people that are leading with their hearts, but they're not thinking critically with their minds. While it may seem on the surface a short-term solution, the easy thing to be loving at first, being truthful is very hard, because when you speak truth, you risk having people turn against you or not agree with you. And that means they may not like you. And that is the other cultural currency we have right now, adults who have a deep desire to be liked and accepted. As an adult, as the responsible one in the room, you're the one who's to say no. You can't say yes to everything. And you're the ones who are going to set a path forward. So when these kids ultimately hit the wall and life does not turn out the way you had promised them it would, who's going to be there to pick up the pieces? So I would challenge any of you candidates that are running for these positions of power, seriously question your motivation. Question why you're doing what you're doing. Is it really in the best interest of these children? Have you really investigated these issues thoroughly, or are you just leading with your heart and putting upon it issues or times when you were discriminated against or you were bullied, and you're conflating that with these incidents? Seriously, there's a lot of future. The future of these children is in your hands. Anyway, thanks for watching. I do appreciate it. Please post any comments you have in the comment section. You can also follow me on my Rumble and my Locals account, and I will see you next time.